I've always had great doubts about myself, about my looks, about my talent or so-called talent. And so I've never believed much of it. I've believed the results, and I'm very happy with them.
For decades, Audrey Hepburn was remembered as pure elegance on screen. But the woman behind that smile carried scars most people never saw. In a rare, quiet conversation later in life, she opened up about the hunger, fear, and loss she faced as a child growing up during World War II, when survival mattered more than dreams of Hollywood. She also hinted at how those early wounds shaped her relationships, her choices in love, and the loneliness she felt even at the height of fame. There is no secret, lost interview revealing scandals, but what she did admit about her childhood pain is far more shocking and emotional than any rumor. And as Daniel Day-Lewis once said about great acting coming from real suffering, Audrey's grace on screen was born from a life that was anything but easy. Audrey Hepburn was born on May 4, 1929, in Ixelles, Brussels, with a name as elegant as her future screen presence: Audrey Kathleen Ruston. Her background was layered with contradiction. Her father, a banker with British and Austrian roots, and her mother, a Dutch baroness, both flirted with extremist Nazi ideology in the 1930s, a shadowy legacy that would later trouble Audrey deeply. Her mother even met Adolf Hitler in 1935 and once praised him in print. Adding to the family mythology, Audrey's father tacked Hepburn onto their surname, claiming a link to Scottish nobility, an invention, but one that gave Audrey an air of mystery she would carry all her life. Her earliest years were marked by fragility and fear. As an infant, she nearly died of whooping cough, her heart stopping briefly before her mother revived her in a moment of desperate panic. The family moved constantly, and by age 5, Audrey had already lived in Brussels, London, and The Hague. While this restless childhood left her feeling unanchored, it also gifted her an ear for languages and a quietly global outlook. When her parents divorced, her father vanished without explanation. Audrey was told he was merely away, a lie that shattered her sense of security. She wrote him letters that were never mailed, later calling this abandonment the deepest wound of her life. Sent to boarding school in England, she found solace in ballet, falling in love with the discipline and dreaming of becoming a dancer, unaware that even this fragile peace would soon be broken. As war clouds gathered over Europe in 1939, Audrey's mother made a fateful decision to return the family to the Netherlands, believing neutrality would offer safety. Instead, it placed them directly in the path of Nazi occupation. Audrey was only 11 when German forces invaded on May 10, 1940, and the sheltered world she knew vanished overnight. Fear became routine, and loss soon followed. In 1942, one of her uncles was executed by the Nazis in retaliation for resistance activities, a brutality that shattered any remaining childhood illusions. 2 other uncles would later meet the same fate, while her brothers were forced into hiding after their names appeared on deportation lists. The family settled in Velp, but survival grew harder by the day. By the winter of 1944–45, food supplies collapsed entirely. The infamous hunger winter brought bitter cold, disease, and constant air raids. Once privileged families stood in endless queues for scraps that often never came. Audrey, still a teenager, lived on as few as 300 calories a day. When food disappeared, her family ate tulip bulbs and foraged for weeds, leaving her weak, anemic, and unable to dance, the one thing that gave her joy. With no heat, they huddled in cellars as bombs fell above them. Yet even in starvation, Audrey showed quiet bravery. At just 15, she assisted the Dutch resistance, performing in silent, secret ballet recitals to raise money for those in hiding and smuggling underground newspapers in her socks while cycling past patrols. Once, seized and loaded onto a German truck bound for forced labor, she escaped when guards were distracted and went into hiding. These years scarred her body and shaped her spirit forever, leaving behind lasting health issues, but also forging the resilience, empathy, and inner strength that would define Audrey Hepburn for the rest of her life. Audrey Hepburn's rise to stardom feels almost like a modern fairy tale, one born from chance, intuition, and quiet resilience. Her life changed forever with Roman Holiday in 1953, though the role of Princess Anne was never meant to be hers. At first, the studio had its eyes on Elizabeth Taylor. Everything shifted after Audrey's screen test at Pinewood Studios in September 1951. Director William Wyler, watching from Hollywood, was struck by something cameras rarely capture: an effortless honesty. When the formal test ended, he asked the crew to keep filming as Audrey spoke about her wartime childhood. In those unscripted moments, Wyler saw depth, grace, and an emotional truth that couldn't be taught. Studio executives were unconvinced. Casting an unknown actress in a $1.5 million production felt risky, even reckless. But Wyler stood firm, famously predicting she would become a star. When Roman Holiday premiered in August 1953, his faith was rewarded. The film became a worldwide success, earning millions and introducing audiences to a new kind of leading lady. Audrey's fragile elegance stood in sharp contrast to the voluptuous glamour Hollywood favored at the time. She felt real, approachable, and heartbreakingly sincere. The film's realism was heightened by its groundbreaking choice to shoot entirely on location in Rome, the first American production to do so, despite ballooning costs and logistical chaos. That gamble paid off, sparking a wave of films shot in Italy and giving rise to the phrase, "Hollywood on the Tiber." At just 24, Audrey won the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1954. Unable to attend the ceremony because she was performing on Broadway, she accepted the honor in New York, still in stage makeup, stunned by her own name being called. Her joy was spontaneous and unpolished. She even kissed the presenter in surprise, and later nearly left her Oscar behind in a restroom. A small human moment fans still adore. Her triumph also reflected the generosity of her co-star Gregory Peck, who insisted her name be billed alongside his and correctly predicted her Oscar win. Days later, she added a Tony Award, achieving a rare double victory in a single week. Her next film, Sabrina, 1954, revealed a softer, more romantic side of Audrey, even as tensions simmered behind the scenes. Despite challenges on set, her performance earned another Oscar nomination and marked the beginning of a lifelong creative bond with designer Hubert de Givenchy. Their partnership reshaped fashion history, blending simplicity with elegance. Givenchy didn't just dress Audrey, he helped her feel seen. Together they created an image that endures to this day, from Sabrina to the iconic black dress of breakfast at Tiffany's. Audrey once said his designs gave her confidence. In return, he said she inspired everything he created. Audrey Hepburn's casting as Eliza Doolittle in the 1964 film version of My Fair Lady stands as one of Hollywood's most emotionally charged and divisive moments. When Warner Brothers chief Jack Warner announced the decision in October 1963, the industry was stunned. For years, Julie Andrews had been Eliza on Broadway, performing the role thousands of times and shaping it so completely that most people assumed the film would naturally belong to her. With Rex Harrison already confirmed to reprise his stage role, the expectation felt almost contractual. But Warner's choice was driven less by sentiment than by box office reality. The film's enormous budget demanded a globally recognized star, and Audrey Hepburn, already an Oscar winner and an international icon, fit that requirement perfectly. From Warner's perspective, her name alone could sell tickets in even the smallest corners of the world. Yet the reaction was swift and unforgiving. Fans protested publicly, industry insiders fumed, and the backlash grew so loud that Audrey herself became overwhelmed by doubt, quietly considering stepping away from the role altogether. Even the musical's creators expressed private outrage, calling the decision a painful misjudgment. In a twist worthy of Hollywood itself, the door closing on My Fair Lady opened another for Julie Andrews. Free from the production, she accepted the lead in Mary Poppins, a role that would transform her into a musical legend and earn her an Academy Award. During her acceptance speech, she pointedly thanked Jack Warner, a moment dripping with irony that history has never forgotten. Determined to prove herself, Audrey committed fully to Eliza, enduring months of grueling vocal training, often practicing for exhausting hours each day. What she didn't know was that the studio had already decided her singing would be replaced by a dubbing artist. When she learned the truth just weeks before the film's release, she was heartbroken, the effort and hope collapsing into quiet tears. Though My Fair Lady dominated the Oscars, winning multiple awards, including Best Picture, Audrey received no acting nomination. The absence cut deeply, especially as she stood on stage to present an award to her co-star. The snub lingered as one of the great what-ifs of her career, a reminder that even grace and dedication do not always shield a star from Hollywood's cruelties. Behind Audrey Hepburn's luminous public image was a private life marked by deep love, quiet sacrifice, and lingering heartbreak. In 1954, while filming Sabrina, the 24-year-old Audrey fell for her co-star, William Holden. Their connection was immediate and intense, spilling beyond the camera into stolen moments on set. Holden, older and already married with children, spoke openly of leaving his wife to build a future with Audrey. That dream collapsed when she learned he could no longer have children. For Audrey, who longed for motherhood, the truth was devastating. Their relationship ended that summer, leaving wounds that never fully healed. Years later, Holden would call her the great love of his life, and when they reunited on screen a decade later, time and his worsening alcoholism cast a shadow over their shared past. Before Holden, Audrey had experienced another kind of heartbreak. In her early 20s, she became engaged to British businessman James Hansen, a relationship that seemed destined for a fairy tale ending. A wedding was planned, a gown created, and a future imagined. Yet as reality set in, Audrey realized their lives would pull them in different directions. Just days before the ceremony, she called it off, quietly giving her dress to a bride who could never have afforded one. A gesture that reflected both her gentleness and growing self-awareness. Later that same year, Audrey married actor and filmmaker Mel Ferrer after meeting him through Gregory Peck. Their union, marked by passion and creative collaboration, also carried a strain. Mel, older and influential, encouraged choices that some felt narrowed Audrey's career, yet she remained fiercely loyal to him. Over 14 years, they made films together and built a life that eventually fractured under pressure. Despite the pain, Audrey later acknowledged that Mel helped her find confidence as an actress. Her greatest longing, to become a mother, came with profound sorrow. Between the mid-1950s and late 1960s, Audrey endured multiple miscarriages and a stillbirth that plunged her into grief. Yet she persevered. In time, she welcomed 2 sons, fulfilling a dream hard-won. These experiences softened her worldview and ultimately guided her toward humanitarian work, where her compassion for women and children became her most enduring legacy. Audrey Hepburn's life also held quieter chapters of romance that never became public legend, only lingering memory. In 1954, when she was 25, she shared a brief, discreet connection with a young U.S. Senator, John F. Kennedy. They met through Gregory Peck, and the attraction was immediate but restrained by reality. Kennedy was married, and Audrey's career was rapidly ascending. Their time together was short, ending during a final meeting at a Malibu beach house where both understood it could go no further. When Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, Audrey was deeply shaken, withdrawing from public life for days. Years later, she would describe the experience as something that never truly left her. By 1967, Audrey made a decision that stunned the world. At 38, still adored and successful, she stepped away from Hollywood entirely. Awards, fame, and acclaim no longer mattered as much as the life she longed to build. After years of personal loss and miscarriages, she chose motherhood and stability over stardom. Retreating to a quiet home in Switzerland, she devoted herself to raising her son, determined to give him the safety and love she herself had lacked. As cinema shifted toward harsher realism, Audrey's graceful exit preserved her image, forever timeless, untouched by an industry she had quietly outgrown. A few years later, in 1969, Audrey Hepburn allowed herself to hope again. She married Andrea Dotti, an Italian psychiatrist, whom she met while traveling in the Mediterranean. Younger than her and far removed from Hollywood, Andrea seemed to represent the calm, grounded family life she had always wanted. They married quietly in Switzerland, and in 1970, Audrey gave birth to her second son, Luca. At 40, she believed the sacrifices she had made were finally rewarded. Family came first, and for a time, she felt complete. But peace proved fragile. Andrea's work kept him away for long stretches, and their expectations of marriage slowly drifted apart. Audrey adapted to a subdued life in Europe, while Andrea expected a more traditional role from her. The deepest wound came with his repeated infidelities. Affairs so careless, they became known even within their home. Learning the truth devastated Audrey, reopening old scars she thought had healed. In the years that followed, she made tentative returns to acting, but Hollywood no longer felt like home. The industry had changed, and the delicate elegance that once defined her belonged to another era. Though some performances were praised, none rekindled her former magic. Gradually, Audrey understood that her chapter as a movie star had closed. Her final appearance, a brief, tender role as an angel in Always, 1989, felt like a blessing rather than a goodbye. With grace and quiet resolve, Audrey stepped away from the screen for good, choosing instead a life of service. The woman who had known hunger, loss, love, and disappointment turned her compassion outward, devoting her remaining years to helping others, finding at last a purpose deeper than fame. In 1988, Audrey Hepburn stepped into what would become the most meaningful role of her life when she was named a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. Over the next 5 years, she traveled tirelessly to more than 50 countries, often to places torn apart by war, famine, and neglect. Her first mission took her to Ethiopia, where drought and conflict had left countless children starving. Audrey worked relentlessly, speaking to the press day after day, determined to make the world pay attention. In Sudan, amid an active civil war, she walked through refugee camps filled with families who had fled with nothing. Similar journeys followed to Kenya, Guatemala, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Somalia, each one leaving a deeper mark on her heart. Audrey didn't arrive as a celebrity seeking praise. She arrived as a witness. She held children, listened to mothers, and used her voice not to promote herself, but to amplify their needs. In Vietnam, she walked beside children to draw attention to their daily struggles. In Bangladesh, photographs of her administering polio vaccines encouraged global support for immunization efforts. Even as illness weakened her, her resolve never softened. In 1992, already battling cancer, she insisted on traveling to Somalia, then one of the most dangerous places on earth. She thanked the soldiers protecting aid workers, telling them their compassion gave her hope. Her devotion to UNICEF was deeply personal. As a child in Nazi-occupied Holland, Audrey had survived the hunger winter, living on tulip bulbs and grass. After the war, food and medical aid from UNICEF's predecessor helped save her life. She never forgot that debt. When she looked at suffering children, she often told them she understood, because she truly did. In her final months, Audrey continued fundraising and speaking on UNICEF's behalf. In December 1992, she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She passed away the following month, but her message endured. Those who have must give to those who have nothing. Her life, shaped by loss and grace, became a quiet testament to compassion in action.